Hello, welcome back to Legal Eyes. Today, we're starting something exciting. Get ready for the IRS mini saga. Oh yes, dear listeners, immediate roadside sanction, 4-part series. Why 4 parts? Because you may not need help with everything. Maybe you know about Canley or you know about the SafeRoads portal, but you need help with how to tie it all together and how to do the hearing. In this 4-part series, we're going to teach you how to navigate the SafeRoads portal, introduce you to Canley, share with you some of the latest cases, and give some tips for oral and written advocacy. Because legal aid doesn't cover this, and some people have a really hard time retaining counsel, and some have a really hard time believing that there is anything that is going to work or get them out of this sticky situation. The podcast we did in 2022, How to Run and Hopefully Win Your IRS, was so popular that it made us realize there is a need for this, and so we're giving you the updated, new and improved 2.0 version. You're welcome. If you are a lawyer or a student or someone with more experience with SafeRoads than an ordinary person, this is not for you. Because part 1 is all about how to navigate the SafeRoads portal. Now, if you just got the Notice of Administrative Penalty, also referred to as a NAP, or also referred to as an Immediate Roadside Sanction, IRS, you may be wondering, why do I even need to go on to a SafeRoads portal? What is a SafeRoads portal? If you're a little technologically challenged, this is not a fun conversation to be having. It sounds like you have to go to something off of Star Trek, but I am here to hold your hand, walk you through it step by step, and you will get to the portal. Lucky you. Today I plan on answering all your questions on SafeRoads. Not really, that's just way too many because it's baffling. But the first one, why? Why, Shannon, do we have to go on to a SafeRoads portal? I don't want to do it. You know as well as I do, there are some things in life you have to do that you'd rather not do, and going to the SafeRoads portal may be right up there at the top of your list. But let's see if I can maybe convince you about why it would be a good idea for you to know how to navigate the SafeRoads portal. First, if you are curious and you want to know what the police are saying against you, that's where you find the disclosure. Number 2, if you decide to go to a hearing, that's where you're going to go to log in to get into the hearing. Number 3, if you are giving up and you are paying a fine, that's where you would go to pay the fine. Number 4, that's where you go as well to ask for a little bit more time to pay the fine. And number 5, if you are going to that hearing, that's where you go to upload your documents. So you see, my dear listener, even though the idea of going to a SafeRoads portal may make you want to throw up, it is worth knowing how to do it. So here we go. First, what you need to do is go to your browser, go to Google, and just type in SafeRoads. No spaces in between, just type it as if it were one word. No need to add any capitals, even though the government thought it would be cute to make the R in SafeRoads capital. Such creativity. Hit enter. You should come up with ads of all sorts, probably including ours. But at some point you should see something like Government of Alberta, and then underneath SafeRoads Alberta. Click on that one. You should see in front of you a page that says SafeRoads Alberta, and then underneath 2 areas with 2 blue boxes saying search. One is resolve your penalty, the other is find a vehicle seizure. And here's a little tip. If you did not get a notice of administrative penalty, you can actually log into the SafeRoads portal using the seizure notice, if you got one. Assuming that you've got the NAP in front of you, click on Search under the box saying Resolve Your Penalty. Part of your ability to navigate SafeRoads will depend on your ability to read that Notice of Administrative Penalty. You may have been avoiding it, you might not have wanted to really look at it, but the time for avoidance is over. Yep, let's take a look. If you got the black and white one, that is one of the more recent versions. If you got one with any color on it, the instructions would be different. And because there aren't a lot of those floating around anymore, I'm not going to go into it. However, you should probably contact counsel if that's the one you got, since emerging case law is giving those people who got those colorful naps some colorful arguments. Turning back now to our less flamboyant but equally important black and white naps, on the top left-hand side, you will see a part that says contravention details, and right underneath that, it will say contravention number. After we clicked the search button underneath resolve your penalty, it took you to a page that says SafeRoads on a big blue impressive banner, and then find a contravention. You see the part about contravention number in there? What they want you to type in is that C to A number at the top left-hand side of the nap. And by the way, from here on in, you may occasionally hear me clicking with the mouse. Normally, I would get rid of those noises. But today, so much clicking, so many noises, and frankly, this allows you to feel more like I'm right there with you, which I am. Once you've got your cursor in place, type capital C, and then the numbers that are in your nap, and then a capital A. And then what I would suggest is that you select all of what you just typed in, right-click on the mouse to copy, and then press Look Up. Well, today, the contravention number that I typed in earlier, it stayed there. But sometimes, dear listener, sometimes it just magically disappears and I have to type it in again, which is why I copied it so that I could just paste it in again. But today, lucky me, for whatever reason, contravention number is still there, but now you have a few more boxes that you have to fill in. You will see last name, and beside that it says required. Actually, they just put required after everything, which really is redundant because if there was something optional, maybe they should highlight that instead, but there's nothing optional. Anyway, yes, I know, dear listener, this is a stupid system. If this really were a Star Trek portal, they would have done so much better. Put your last name in, put your date of birth in, but look at how the officer set it out on the nap. If he misspelled your name or if she put in the wrong date of birth, make sure you put it in wrong on the portal too, because otherwise you won't get in. So I know you know what your date of birth and your name are, but double check the nap to see what it says. When they've got Y, of course that's the year, you don't have to put in a dash. So if you just put in, and I'm making this up, 1992 05 27, that should work. And that would be May 27, 1985, or whatever date I gave you. And then it's going to ask you for the occurrence time. That, go back to the notice of administrative penalty, is right underneath the contravention number. Type that in. You don't have to put in the colon, but do put in all the numbers. So if it's like 0335, put 0335 in. And then you press search. This should now take you to SafeRoads Contravention Overview. And if it makes your head hurt looking at it, you're not alone. But we're just going to go through this from top to bottom together so that we can explore it and you'll know where to go for what. You'll see the first thing they want to show you is how you can pay. That's very important for the government. It is not so important for you, at least not right now. We don't know if you want to pay right now, and make sure you understand paying now means you're giving up your right to a hearing. And just the fact that you are listening to this podcast means you haven't given up all hope. There is still a little grain left, and it's worth exploring. So don't click that button. And please avoid the misconception that one of my clients had. Paying now does not mean that you're going to get your vehicle out earlier or sooner. No, as soon as you click the Pay Now button, SafeRoads treats that as if you have waived your right to a hearing. Have I emphasized enough not to click on that button? Great, don't click on that. The next series of buttons on the way down, of course, still has to do with paying because the government is really hoping you're just going to give up right from the get-go. It's request time to pay. Remember how I said that was one of the things you could do? If you're not going ahead with the hearing for whatever reason, request time to pay, that's the spot you go. And actually, because I can't do that for my client, and I can't walk you through it, that part is very intuitive. If you click on that button, it will automatically give you more time, normally, without much effort on your part. Take a good look at that box, though. Do you see there's a request deadline? Make sure you don't miss it. One very interesting feature about the SafeRoads regime is that all that information you're seeing on the SafeRoads portal, it stays up there for years. This whole system has only been in place since December 2020, and so I can't say for sure how long they're going to keep it, but I was curious when I was preparing for this podcast, so I went back to the information from the very first client who contacted us who had been given a NAP. I do remember her, and I went in on August 24th, 2024, and all the information that was there from December 5th, 2020 was still there. That includes the decision, the arguments, the evidence, the uploads, everything. Moving on. The next box below may look slightly different depending on whether your hearing has already taken place or is about to take place. This box is called Review Status. This is where you'll go to book your hearing as well, so stay tuned for that part. It's coming. If your hearing is coming up, it will say in the middle of the box, IRS review scheduled and the date and time. If it has already taken place, it will normally say your review decision is available. This is a very important box. Now, if you click on View Review Details, it takes you to a page called Review Details. Here we are. And when you look, what you see will again depend on where you're at in the process. If you already had your hearing, this is where you're going to find the decision. Now that you know where it is, you can read and reread that decision to your heart's delight or your heart's misery. However, I'm going to focus on the situation where your hearing is still coming up. You will see a couple of things. You will see review type, that would be oral, date, time, a big button called Join the Meeting Room, but just ignore everything that you see at the beginning. Scroll down to a part where you see a box saying Supporting Documents. Do you see that? There's one that's already there called Technical Materials Library, and that is a very important spot. The Technical Materials Library is, well, click on it. It won't hurt you to click on that one. Let's click it together. In there, you will see an eye-boggling number of links to various documents that sound really horribly boring to read. You're not wrong, but let's go through a few of the more important ones together. It initially says Technical Materials Library, then you see Operational Procedures. Under all of those things, the first one, ASD-1 Alcosensor FST Operator's Manual, that's important. Click on it. We're exploring together today. There it is, Alcosensor FST Operator's Manual. Some of my favorite parts to refer to start on page 8, Conducting a Subject Test. There are instructions. There are suggestions about what to do when there is a refusal, like they have to change the mouthpieces, they should do a demo, they should check the mouthpieces to see if there are any obstructions. And do you know what, dear listener? They almost never do all that, except maybe in Hinton. It is really annoying for defense counsel when smart officers get in the way of an otherwise good defense. Getting back to this, page 8 is really helpful. Also, check out page 13, error messages. Don't you think that if the screening device is giving off error messages, the officer should write down what they are? Especially because some of them mean the device isn't working properly. Yeah, that's pretty important. I hate to say it, but that's kind of all I really like out of that manual. To go back to where you were, you can just click on the X beside the ASD1 AlkaSensor FST, and it should take you back to Technical Materials Library. ASD2 AlkaSensor FST Calibrators Manual, I think for your purposes you can probably leave it. But the ASD3 AlkaSensor FST Sampling Criteria Exhibit B of E1, Affidavit of Carrie Lynn Blake, let's click on that one. I know you're thinking, this is going to be just horrible. How long does this take? But really, I want you to know where to find stuff. That's the whole point of navigating, is to find your way around. So if you were charged with failing to provide a breath sample, that is, you were trying, you were blowing, but you couldn't make it work, not an outright refusal and not a fail, this document is very important. This person that they are tendering as an expert says that it's not everybody who can provide a proper breath sample. Usually, the key factor, as noted in paragraph 2, is the forced vital capacity. So, if you get a lung test and it shows that your forced vital capacity is not what it should be, i.e. less than 2 liters, you probably have an excellent defense. Okay, click out of there. Now I would go scroll down, scroll past the rest of the ASD things. If you weren't tested at the police station, scroll past the approved instruments. Scroll past the approved drug screening equipment. I truly believe that those materials are dangerous for your health. You will die of boredom. Although, if the basis of your nap was impairment by drugs, make sure you hire counsel, even if it's not us, because chances are, and you know this after listening to other episodes of Legal Eyes, once you're charged with drug impairment, you probably have arguments. So get a lawyer on that quickly. But for now, assuming that that isn't your situation, keep scrolling down. Scroll past blood and urinalysis. As interesting as that may seem to you, don't stop. Some of these materials should come with health warnings, but medical is important. M-2 mouth alcohol is very important. That one, when you click on it, you will see that it says that normally mouth alcohol disappears within 5 to 10 minutes, but a 15-minute deprivation period is, she says, more than sufficient to ensure there will not be any mouth alcohol. And the precaution is, i.e., officers are trained to wait 15 minutes after the last alcoholic beverage was consumed. That's because, my dear listener, and I don't think this probably comes as a surprise, if you just took a quick sip of alcohol and then you immediately blew into a screening device, it could show a fail, even when none of that alcohol had hit your system yet. So don't forget, every time we're doing a breath sample, what we are really doing is converting a breath sample into a blood alcohol content. And the problem with mouth alcohol is it will give you a breath sample reading when there could be no alcohol in the blood. Or there could be less alcohol in the blood. In any event, it's not good and it's not reliable. If you were being tested on the instrument at the station, that's normally the Intox ECIR2 that looks like a big laptop with a whole bunch of stuff attached to it. Well, that one has an error message for mouth alcohol. But of course, the little one that your whole case depended on, dear listener, that doesn't. So you're dependent on the officers asking you about the time of last drink and hoping that you're answering truthfully. Okay, click out of mouth alcohol. Now, M-5, impairment and effects. Again, that's very quick. I'm not going to click on it, but it's one that basically says, according to Carrie Lynn Blake and others, I will give her that, everyone's ability to operate a motor vehicle is impaired at readings of 100 milligrams per cent or more, regardless of tolerance levels. And the Alka-Sensor FST that you probably blew into, that little handheld device, is set to fail at 100 milligrams per cent. That is 100 milligrams of alcohol in 100 milliliters of blood. You see where this is going? Yes, as soon as you register a fail, even though you weren't showing any symptoms of impairment, you weren't slurring your speech, you didn't have a terrible driving pattern, you weren't staggering, stumbling, doesn't matter. At that point, as soon as you fail, that means that your ability to operate the motor vehicle is impaired by alcohol. Okay, those are the main documents I'd want you to see in the technical materials library. So X on the tab above, and you should be back in Review Details. Now you see, under Supporting Details, as we said, there is the Technical Materials Library, but then there's that big blue box saying Add or Modify Documents. If it is not blue, you may be in trouble. If your hearing is still coming up and you are planning on uploading documents and you just didn't get around to it, it's probably now too late. If it's grayed out, you can't do it. You only had 2 clear days before the hearing to upload your materials. The police have 4 clear days to upload their materials. Now, if your hearing has already taken place, then it's normal that that would be grayed out. But make sure, while it's still blue, you have uploaded everything you want to rely on: audio, video recordings, photographs, maps, notes, screenshots, and written submissions, because once it's grayed out, time's up. As counsel, I upload the consent to representation form because apparently they won't believe me if I say I really am your lawyer. No, they need that in writing, signed by you, even if you're in the hearing. I have to upload that, otherwise the hearing might not take place. Stupid rules for a stupid system. The request details are in another box, and it shows what we typed in on your behalf when we set the meeting up. Okay, now the other big thing about review details, you'll see a button that says Join the Meeting Room. That is very important because that is where you click to actually go to your hearing the day of your IRS review in front of the SafeRoads adjudicator. It is best if you have Cisco, C-I-S-C-O, Cisco's WebEx, W-E-B, capital E-X. I think putting capitals in the middle of words is really a big fad now. WebEx is an app you should have downloaded already. You just go to an app store, your Google Play Store, or I'm an Android user, so whatever the Apple Store is, it's the Apple Store. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Go there, find WebEx, and you can see Cisco's WebEx. Click, it's free, download it. Don't do anything with it. You don't have to do anything at all. But the day of the review, when you come into review details, you can click Join the Meeting Room, and ta-da! You will all of a sudden be in the meeting. Now, I want to give you a warning. Most people are conscientious and they want to be there with lots of time, so they'll log in, let's say, 7 or 8 minutes early to make sure that for their 2 o'clock hearing, they're there. But just so you know, the link often won't open up until literally 2 o'clock, right on the dot. Some adjudicators will open a little bit early, but many won't. So in case you click on that and then it says you have to wait until the host joins, don't think that you're in the wrong place. You're probably in the right place. But also take a look under review details, the IRS review. There is also a phone number you can call. So if the link for whatever reason is not working, you can phone that number and you will be connected into the meeting room. Obviously not with video, but the only thing that is recorded is the audio, so it's not a bad option. Finally, if you are having a lot of difficulty logging in, which you really shouldn't if you've gone through this podcast, but if you are, the adjudicator can loop you in. She or he will often ask me, would you like me to call your client and see if I can get them to join? And I will say yes. I give them the phone number, they dial, and all of a sudden, you're in the hearing. Now, if you're going back to the SafeRoads portal after your decision has already been rendered, review details will say underneath it, number R00 whatever it is, and then it says IRS review decision, and you'll see the number of the decision, the Traffic Safety Act section, the description, and the decision. And underneath that, you'll see decision letter. And now, the moment that some of you have been waiting for on bated breath. What if you haven't already scheduled the meeting? How do you do it? Where do you start? What do you write? I'm going to walk you through it right now. If you have not already scheduled a review, then under Request Time to Pay, you're going to see a spot that says Request a Review. And it will say you can apply for a review if you wish to dispute your penalty. It will also give you the review request deadline. And so you click on Request a Review, and then an angry-looking red box will pop up saying, a review won't reduce fines or penalties. The adjudicator cannot lower the fine amount or reduce any associated penalties. Do you wish to continue? Yes, you do, dear listener. Press yes. Next, you will be asked to review and accept terms and conditions. If you are really struggling to go to sleep at night, this is one of the best cures. Read it out like a light immediately. Next, you'll see review details, and they'll ask, are you the recipient of the contravention notice? And you may think, why else would I be here? But actually, if you look at the drop-down menu, some of the other options are you're being represented by an agent or by a lawyer. They'll ask you to choose a review method. We always choose oral because you can send in written submissions and have an oral hearing. And you will note that both cost $150. So why would you go with just a written hearing? And yes, it feels incredibly unfair that you have to pay to dispute your penalty, but get your credit card ready. Because if you don't pay, you don't get to appeal. All you poor people, out of luck, don't have a credit card? Hopefully you have a friend or a family member who will help you out. Under grounds for review, I always recommend putting in grounds will follow upon review and receipt of disclosure. And I also note, please note we are requesting all audio and video recordings associated with this incident, along with all notes and reports of all officers and people involved. I then copy and paste that request into the additional request notes box. Now, no one's going to give you those things, but at least you can argue that they didn't give it to you when you asked. Finally, getting back to making sure this is booked, you're going to be asked if you need an interpreter. Ironically, whether you click the box or not, it makes no difference. They're not going to provide an interpreter, and they're not going to give you any extra time if you bring an interpreter. So why do they have that box? The only answer I can come up with is, I think they're just being nosy. Moving on. Next box is preferred contact information. This is where they're going to send you updates about the file and the decision, so make sure you put that in properly. And then you should be at the point where they are going to offer you some dates, pick one that works for you, and then you're good to go. After you pay, of course. The government's not going to do anything unless you pay. Okay, all done, set up, ready to go, back to navigating the rest of the SafeRoads portal. So let's go back. When you either click on the back button or you just above review details, there's back to contravention overview. That's the easiest thing to do. If you click on the X, you exit out of the whole thing. So don't do that. Okay. So click on back to contravention overview. And now you can see contravention information. and it should say contravention number, and you'll see that it's in blue with a little line under it. And now we are all programmed that when we see blue with a little line under it, our brains automatically think, I bet I can click on that. Yes, you can. Click on it. See what happens. Da-da-da-da! You are in contravention details. Now, contravention details is where all the disclosure is. Remember how I said if you want to know what's being said against you, contravention details is where you go. And now, dear listener, for my standard legalized warning, do not go looking at this portal and think to yourself, it's hopeless. A lawyer will look at this differently than someone who is not familiar with all the rules and regulations. Don't go assuming that you have nothing to work with. Even if you don't seem to have one of the arguments that have already been discussed in one of the other legalized episodes, keep in mind, I've not spelled out all the arguments. That would take forever, and the law is changing all the time. If you have a lot on the line, if you really need to win this, get a lawyer who knows what they are doing to help you out with it. Starting with calling Gunn Law Group would probably be a good idea. But you call whoever you want. Back to contravention details. At the top, you'll see the Notice of Administrative Penalty number and then some general information under contravention information. It will tell you in particular whether this is a first offense or a second offense, and it's very important to note what are the contravention details. Does it say refusal? Does it say refusal and impaired? Does it say impaired? Does it say impaired and over 80? Or does it say just over 80? Or does it say anything with respect to drugs? The reason why that's important is sometimes when you look at the details, for example, in a refusal case, you may see all sorts of symptoms of impairment, gross impairment, and you think to yourself, oh boy, this doesn't look good. We don't care how impaired you were because the only basis for the Notice of Administrative Penalty was refusal. So just hone in on the details about any possible refusal. Is it made out? If it isn't, even if there's dangerous driving, assaults, impaireds, all sorts of other very interesting but peripheral things, forget about them. Just focus on that. Now, on the other hand, if you are looking at contravention details and it says impaired and over 80, you have to keep in mind, you have to have a legal basis to overturn both of those bases in order to win your review. Keep going down. You'll see the spot where it says immediate license suspension. Hopefully, it says 90 days plus 12 months. But it could say 90 days plus 36 months. Or it could say 90 days plus lifetime suspension. That means you can't drive for 90 days, but then after that, you get very intimately acquainted with ignition interlock, and that is a relationship you will have until you're old and gray. Yeah, without it even being proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you were guilty. Very scary. Oh well, this is our system. I didn't invent it, I just work with it. Scrolling down, occurrence information. Here are some details. I like to note them down just to see, are there any contradictions later? You would be surprised how often the occurrence date or the occurrence time isn't correct. Scrolling down, you see occurrence information observed by, time first observed, time of stop. You would be surprised how often the time first observed is after the time of stop. It always makes me wonder, how could they possibly have stopped you without seeing you? We're kind of going back to that Star Trek portal-y idea, aren't we? Scrolling down, you can see traffic conditions, road surfaces, passenger positions. I love this one because sometimes it's left blank and then you find out there were passengers. Or sometimes passengers are filled in and there weren't any. Look at it carefully and then scroll down. You may see a police narrative. Now, not everybody is going to do a police narrative. Some officers actually write reports. Those are required records under Section 2 of the SafeRoads Alberta regulation. A police narrative is not a required record, but adjudicators like to say it's pretty much the same thing as a report. It really isn't, but that's what they say. So take a look. The police narrative, if there is one, is usually fairly detailed, and it spells out why you were stopped and what happened and why you were given the contravention. If it doesn't say that, and you don't see anything else on the portal that says that, you have an argument, my friend. Check out the times: time of ASD demand, time of refusal or time of fail, time of roadside appeal if there was one. Then there's recipient information. That's all about you. Check it out. You are the one best placed to know whether that is accurate or not. Keep scrolling down. Recipient contact information. And then you come to a very important part called supporting documents. You should, at minimum, see a notice of administrative penalty and a seizure notice. Now, if you don't have those, you have an argument. If a screening device was used to test you, and we don't have any documentation with respect to that, you also have an argument. Take a look at what's missing, take a look at what's there, and also take a look at who submitted it. Because if there is a report from the officer, but it was someone other than the issuing officer, the one who issued you the notice of administrative penalty, who uploaded it, you have an argument. Isn't it wonderful how many times you might have an argument? Don't believe anyone who tells you no one wins these things. Not true. You may have lots of arguments. You just need the right set of legal eyes to find them. This podcast series on how to run and hopefully win your IRS is really about giving you that different perspective. Finished poking around in there? Click on Back to Contravention Overview. Underneath there is a seizure number. You can click on that. And when you do, it brings up vehicle seizure details. You'll see there's a blue box saying View Linked Contraventions. Click on that one. Oh, what a fun circle. It took you back to Contravention Overview. You could go round and round. You could click on one and it'll take you back to the other part. Click on the other one and it'll take you back again. It's like this merry-go-round. It is important because, like I said, if you don't have the notice of administrative penalty, you can click on the vehicle seizure and you can see the related contraventions and often get into the SafeRoads portal that way. All right, so under seizure number, because of course we clicked on that button and now we're back to Contravention Overview, the applicable penalties are noted underneath. So if you forget what they are, you can read them and reread them to your heart's content, or yes, your heart's misery. View activity history can also be interesting. It will show after the fact when your decision was uploaded and when you requested your review. And there's a little button under there that says Back to Contravention Overview. You click on it and you're back to where you started. We are nearing the end of our SafeRoads portal journey, but keep your seatbelt on. As your official SafeRoads portal guide, I have one more stop to show you. Now you remember that I said you could upload documents. When you go to View Review Details from the Contravention Overview page, you will see supporting documents. And there, when you click on Add or Modify Documents, you click on the blue part that says Drag and Drop or Click to Upload, and that should open up the list of files on your computer. You just go to the right place, click on one, and it will upload. It will say uploaded in green if it worked. And you're going to be like, great, all done. Do not click the back button. Don't X out. You are not done. And there is a reported decision of where a lawyer made that mistake, because look 2 more boxes down. There's one that says add additional document. Another one says finish. Yes, dear listener, if you do not finish, if you do not click that blue button, it's as if you never did it at all. So once you've uploaded what you want, click finish. And once you've clicked finish, it will take you back to review details. Congratulations! You made it through this mini course. Now you can thrill all your friends and family by showing them around the portal, introducing them to the wonderful world of SafeRoads. I know, you're all fired up about it now and all excited and ready to go, but don't be surprised if people still prefer the Star Trek portal over the SafeRoads portal. If you got an IRS, I hope you're getting some help with it. This can be difficult, but if you're trying to do this on your own, definitely stay tuned for parts 2, 3, and 4 of How to Run and Hopefully Win Your IRS 2.0, the new and improved version from 2024. Good luck with all of this, and talk to you soon.